Hello, Campus Orchestra. I am not able to be here today. Your worksheet today is about harmonizing the melody that you created yesterday. So I'm going to take you through the very top part, which has you writing in the triads for each pitch of the D major scale. Remember, you wrote your melody in D major. So we're going to create arpeggios. Remember, arpeggios are the first, third, and fifth note of a scale, and you're building those arpeggios stacked on top of one another for each of the pitches of the D major scale. So you can see here, I've got the violin scale written out and the stacked arpeggios. They look like little snowmen. They start on the pitch that is listed below, and they skip first, third, and fifth note of the scale. Here's the viola, same thing. And then cello and bass is down here. The first note of the scale, the second, the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. So you're going to want to do exactly what I did on your worksheet. That's going to give you the foundation for creating your harmony. So go ahead and take that time now. I'm going to continue on to my example for the second half of your assignment. So I wrote a little piece, 8-measure piece called Wind Chariot. And I'm going to use my harmonizing triads. I'm just going to put the viola one up because that's what I used. Let's see. Whoop, great. Okay, I'm going to use my harmonizing triad to decide what notes I want to use for my harmony part. So my harmony part, if you look down here, it's going to be a double bass. And your instructions on the worksheet are to take the first 2 beats of your melody and you're going to harmonize them with a half note. But first you have to decide what notes in the first 2 beats of your melody have commonalities with the pitches up above here. So I have D, E, and F sharp in my first 2 beats. And I'm going to come up here and look which notes I have most in common in these triads. So I have D, E, and F. Like I said, my first triad, D major triad, D, F, and A. Well, I have D and I have F. So the first triad, D, F, A, is a really strong possibility. I'm going to scan through, see what other things I have, what other pitches are in common. I mean, yeah, not really. B, D, F, no. D, F, well, that could be, yeah. So I have D and F in the B triad, and I have D and F in the D triad. So those are possibilities. Now, because I did have you write this melody in the key of D, for me, my choice, I'm gonna go with D instead of B, because that just kind of reinforces that D major sound. So the instructions on your worksheet say take the first note, the lowest note of your triad that you chose, and you're going to create a half note in your harmony part. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to take the lowest note of the D triad, so that's going to be a D, and I'm going to make a D half note for my bass part, and it's thinking. There we go. So I now have a D half note. Now let's move on to the next 2 beats of the measure. I have a G, sorry, this is viola clef, G and D. Okay, so I have G and D. I'm going to go back up to my harmonizing triad up above. And let's see, G and D. I've definitely, the G chord here, the G triad, has both G and D. That's a really strong one. And honestly, that's pretty much the only one that really has the particular two notes that I decided on, that I wrote, that I created, G and D. Really, only the G triad has those in common. So I'm going to use now, I'm going to go to the lowest note of that triad, G, and I'm going to put that half note again in my harmonizing part. So let's take a look at the next one. So I have an E half note in this next measure. I have a lot of choices. So my E triad has an E in it. My A triad, the top note, A, C, E, is also in the A triad. And then the E is also in my C sharp triad. So now I have some decisions to make. Because G typically doesn't sound too good with C sharp coming right after it, I'm going to not choose C sharp. E or G. Or no, sorry, E or A. Well, let's be wild and crazy. I'm gonna go with A. That's not wild and crazy. All right. Anyway. So I decided on my A triad. I'm gonna take the lowest note of the A triad. It's got my E in it. So I'm gonna make an A to harmonize with my E. Next one is a D. All right, so I have some decisions. D. D also shows up in the G triad. D also shows up in my B triad. So I have some choices. I'm gonna choose the B triad. So I'm gonna take the lowest note of the B triad and I'm gonna put it below like that. So this is how you're gonna complete the first 7 measures of your melody. The last measure of your melody, actually, the last measure of your melody should contain a D, just like when you created your melody, your last measure should contain a D whole note. That is the name of your scale that you're working with and the foundational tone, the foundational pitch of the D major scale. And that gives us a sense of resolution for our 8-measure creation, composition. I will be sending a Zoom link to Schoology. It will be the first link selection, and I will be available to help you out on Zoom from 11:50 to 1:20 today in that Zoom link. So again, you can go to Schoology if you have any questions about this. I'm going to ask your substitute, whoever's helping you out today, I'm going to ask them to find the folder where I kept your composition worksheet from yesterday on my desk, and I'm going to ask them to give it back to you so that you can copy your melody onto this worksheet. All right, good luck. I'll see you.